What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs. If you are a returning viewer, I'm glad you're here. If you're a new viewer, welcome in. Hope you stick around for a while. And it is the month of September, which means today, right now, can you believe it, is PS Tuesday. We are talking about the PlayStation 2 every Tuesday, the month of September 2023. And today, I am giving you the 10 games that I still go back to regularly on the PlayStation 2.
You're lucky you're still breathing.
Before I was a video game fan, I was a comic book fan, and it's honestly a lot harder than you would think to find a good blending of those two interests. We're kind of in a renaissance right now with great games like Spider-Man on the PS4 and the Batman games on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, but one of the games that really set itself apart and really showed what you could do with a comic book property in a video game was the X-Men Legends series. And I first played X-Men Legends on the PS2. If you haven't played this game, it's a little bit like Diablo. It's a 4-character hack-and-slash dungeon crawler where you get to control one of the X-Men from the Ultimate Universe, and you're going to go through and fight the Brotherhood of Mutants. It's pretty straightforward fare as far as comic books go, but the gameplay is really where it sets itself apart. So you don't just have a set number of powers. You're able to level up and power up your mutant as you feel fit. So you don't just have to have Wolverine doing a Berserker barrage all the time. You can really bounce up his healing factor to make him heal up quicker in battle. You can utilize Cyclops as more of a crowd control character or a direct damage character. It's all depending on how you want to play it. It's a fantastic game. The entire series is wonderful. Both X-Men Legends games are great, and I really enjoy all 3 Marvel Ultimate Alliance games as well. I've talked about my love of iNinja in the past, but that's usually with the GameCube release. But the PS2 version of the game is nothing to ignore either. Developed by Argonaut, and for those paying attention, that's the company that helped develop games like Star Fox and Buck Bumble, which has the greatest single theme song in the history of video games, next to probably Rising Zan the Samurai Gunman. This was released at a time when there were hundreds of third-person action platformers. And at first glance, the game might not look like anything really special. Yet another 3D platformer collectathon with a bolted-on hack-and-slash feature? But there's something truly unique about the game that's hard to quantify beyond you just need to play it. But since I like hearing myself talk I shall. And we'll start with talk, actually, because the ninja himself is voiced by the incomparable and incredible Billy West, who you may know better as Philip J. Fry from Futurama, Ren and Stimpy, and Doug Funny from Doug. And while the game has a wicked sense of humor and an incredible ability to not take anything too seriously, the gameplay's no laughing matter. A beautiful combination of 3D platformer tropes of the early 2000s and some truly unique physics engine implementations, like utilizing your chain hook to anchor yourself around corners as you run up a wall on a track. It's all seamlessly in place and just a joy to experience, especially when paired with the equal parts difficult yet fun gameplay experience. This is a series I wish had lived on. There was both a GBA game planned as well as a sequel slated for 2004 that unfortunately never saw the light of day. Now, as much as I love the original release, Ratchet & Clank Going Commando is my favorite entry from the PS2. The continuing adventures of our favorite Lombax and his robot buddy, Ratchet & Clank 2 introduced one of the most important aspects of the series, weapons and character upgrades. And while each and every subsequent game would maintain that feature set, the introduction here marked a distinct line in the sand of how the series would proceed moving forward. And the upgrades lent themselves to gameplay as well. Rather than just kind of a mindless task to complete in game, your weapons and their upgrades were compelling and necessary to proceed through the game. Everything is improved in this one, from the graphics to the sound to the gameplay, and the player feels compelled to not just focus on the main storyline, but to participate in the minigames as well. It's a perfect balance of a game that just does everything right, and it's a rare platformer that can claim that. While not as ambitious or as advanced as something like Rift Apart on the PS5, I mean, obviously, everything that happens in that game stems from this one. I'd argue even more so than the original. The characters feel more fleshed out and more like the versions we'd get to know, the humor found its rhythm, and the gameplay in the series stays true to what we have here from this point forward. It's a nearly perfect experience.
To Leach. Here comes Gerard.
I know for a lot of folks, they look at what is seemingly an archaic sports title like NHL 06 and they have one question. Why? And the answer is simply, it's fun. This is a few years into the PS2 lifecycle for the NHL series, so a lot of the kinks had already been worked out, so the game moves like a dream. despite the weird bug I ran into that caused the face-off to lock up at the start of the game that I remember being there in NHL 2000 as well, but that doesn't really matter. And the gameplay itself is a welcome next step from games like NHL 94, which, by the way, the Genesis version of NHL 94 is included on the disc to play on the PS2 version, so bonus points. Rather than focusing solely on the skill stick that would permeate the series in the teen releases, NHL 06 utilized the face buttons for shooting and passing, and allowed the player to make use of the right analog stick as a way to do specialty shots if your player had a star icon underneath them. Featuring a deep dynasty mode that put you in charge of every single facet of the franchise, the game was as sim as it got while still being incredibly enjoyable. You also got a fun season mode, as well as the EA World Tournament featuring national teams from around the world. Last Word on Sports.com said in 2015 that, a decade later, NHL 06 remains EA's best, and I'm inclined to agree. Sure, it might look a little rough around the edges when compared to other games in the franchise's history, and nothing really hits like the nostalgia that are those mid-90s releases. But this is a fun, reliable, and fast hockey game that's just super easy to lose yourself in. I have loved Street Fighter since the first time I played Street Fighter II with my buddy David at the Walmart in Cape Coral, Florida. But the game took such a huge leap forward to me with the release of Street Fighter Alpha. And while there might be better ways to play these games, there's no more convenient way than via the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology Collection. Featuring all 4 Street Fighter Alpha games, Alpha, Alpha 2, Alpha 2 Gold, and Alpha 3, as well as Super Gem Fighter, Mini Mix, aka Pocket Fighter, it's just an amazing collection of games. The CP System 2 games were all works of art, with huge, beautiful sprites featuring killer animations, as well as incredible soundtracks and massive character sets with huge on-screen effects whenever you do a super move. You're also able to unlock Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, a remixed and updated version of the Japanese release, as well as Hyper Street Fighter Alpha. The Alpha games, to me, are Street Fighter at their best. The combat is fast and fluid, the characters are big and memorable, and the music is incredible. To have them all in a collection on the PS2, while yeah, it might not be the best controller to play a fighter with, is a treat.
Now, let's begin!
I've got a soft spot in my heart for rhythm games, and especially for ones that have a goofy-ass peripheral like the Donkey Kong bongos. So it should come as no surprise that Taiko Drum Master is one of my favorites on the PS2. And side note, I'm better than what's being shown on screen. The delay from the system via HDMI makes hitting things perfectly difficult, to say the least. Before this dropped in the States in the PS2, the only exposure I'd ever had to Taiko drums were at Epcot in Orlando, so I was very intrigued by what the game had to offer. And what it offered was a colorful, bright, and fun video game that had some great and some not-so-great covers of songs that you would play the drum beat to. Seriously, don't ever listen to their cover of Love Shack, it's awful. There were some pop hits, classical pieces, and some songs from Namco's games that offered a ton of variety to what could have been a tedious game. And while Guitar Hero definitely is the benchmark for rhythm games on the PS2, my main memories of playing that game are equal parts enjoyment and frustration from the original guitars being so poorly made. With Taiko Drum Master, though, we have beaten the holy hell out of our drums for years with nary an issue encountered. And if we get bored with the standard gameplay where each song has 4 ever-escalating difficulty levels, we can pop over to the minigames and enjoy those. It's a really fun implementation that works really well as both a single-player experience and a pass-the-drum multiplayer score challenge. Or, better yet, plug in 2 drum controllers and play simultaneously. Alright, I know I just talked about Sly 2 Band of Thieves last week in the $100 challenge video, link on screen right now. If you haven't watched it yet, you should go check it out. But I wanted to talk about it again because it's just such an excellent game. If you haven't played the Sly series, it is an action stealth game to a degree where you play as a raccoon thief. And the first game is spectacular, but the second game is really where it sets itself apart. This is where the stealth elements of gameplay really kind of settled in. The first game was more of just a standard kind of platforming collect-a-thon, but in the second game, you really get those stealth elements. And you also get multiple characters to play. You get to play as Murray, who's more of a direct damage physical character, or you can play as Bentley, who is a hacker turtle with a crossbow. Look, just go with it. It's awesome. I adore the Sly Cooper series. It is one of my favorites on the PlayStation, and if it weren't for Ratchet & Clank, it would probably be my favorite series on the PS2. But it's just so wonderful to play and such a great game to check out. It's got fantastic cel-shaded graphics, a huge world to explore with tons of levels in each area you station yourself at, and some great gameplay throughout. I've loved the Tales series from Namco since the first time I played them, and Tales of Legendia on the PS2 is an amazing entry into the series. This is just a huge game. So first off, all of the Tales games are massive, and they feature a great cast of characters, and one of the things I really appreciate about these games is that it's a fully voiced cast. So every character has a personality, and the thing I really love about this game is the combat. Every Tales game has active time combat, which makes things a lot more interesting than just standard turn-based fare. But the combat is still done in such a way that you feel like you're still playing a role-playing game, which is kind of a rare treat, because a lot of action RPGs can take me out of the experience, but not the Tales series, and certainly not Tales of Legendia. It's a beautiful setting on a massive ship in the middle of the ocean with memorable characters, beautiful graphics, and fantastic music. It's a wonderful game that I have played numerous times and I go back to every other year.
Ooh, the furonity! Vaporize them, Crypto!
Destroy All Humans, which had a fantastic remastered release on modern consoles in 2020, along with its sequel in 2022, is one of those games that just feels like a classic PS2 game, right? Like it was designed specifically for not only the console, but for the DualShock 2 controller. Your job, playing as the gray alien Crypto, is to, and shocker, I know here, destroy all the humans, either via your handheld ray gun or saucer-mounted death ray, and then harvest their brains to collect their DNA. It's dark, but it's firmly tongue-in-cheek. Everything in this game is designed to parody the 50s and 60s Little Green Spacemen, complete with Men in Black, newsreels, over-the-top billboards, and memorable NPCs you will meet that embody the hysteria and paranoia of everything happening in the 50s around the Roswell incident. You'll be required to play both in an open-world setting on foot, as well as regularly hopping into your saucer to destroy vehicles, structures, and, yes, humans. As irreverent as it is action-packed, Destroy All Humans can be picked up and played for 5 minutes or for 5 hours. Both will be tons of fun, and you really don't feel like you're missing out on it if you slow roll your way through the game. I'm also really impressed by the sense of style this game possesses. Not only is it a really nice game to look at still, it's equally as good to listen to. The voice acting is fantastic, and the Foley work and music in the game are equally as impressive. I'd love to see something like this game for cryptids. In fact, there's the question of the day for this video. Are there any great games out there starring cryptids like the Hodag, Mothman, or Sasquatch? Let me know in the comments down below. While most would put SSX Tricky on this list, and truthfully, I almost did, I've been having so much fun playing Sledstorm over the last year since I discovered it that I can't not mention it here. A sequel to a PS1 title, Sledstorm puts you behind the handlebars of the snowmobile, snow machine, sled thing, at which point the countdown starts and you're off to the races. Equal parts SSX and Freakstyle, Sledstorm leans heavily into the over-the-top nature of all EA Sports big titles, with big speed, big air, big crashes, and characters with big personality. And it does this with a flair for the dramatic. I found myself holding my breath as I make a high jump and wait for impact in hopes that I don't wreck out, or I'll lean my body as I take a sharp corner trying to urge my character to make the same turn safely. It gives me all the same feelings that I had when I first discovered the SSX series. A mix of exhilaration, joy, and that constant desire to play just one more race. While games like SSX and NBA Street get all the love for the EA big franchises, titles like Sledstorm, Freakstyle, and Shocks are significantly important in the overall experience that is EA Sports big. And hey, if you are an SSX fan, there's some characters from the series in this game too.
Alright, there you have it, my friends. The games I am still going back to on the PlayStation 2 in the year 2023. Some of these are 20 years old at this point, and they're still absolutely fantastic. Let me know in the comments down below the games you still go back to on the PlayStation 2. And tune in next week on PlayStation Tuesday when I let you know 10 fantastic licensed PS2 games that you should be checking out. If you are enjoying the PS2 content and you want to see a video where I put together a $100 greatest hits collection, check out the link on screen right now. And until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.